The first time I've ever heard about the 47-year Iran war was like this year. Like, we don't teach about the 47-year war with Iran in school. Like, it's insulting to actual conflicts that we've been involved in.
That you have no idea what the Iranians have done to us for 47 years.
The latest panel on CNN's Abby Phillips show turned into a surprising case of MAGA voices clashing with each other, as Caroline Sunshine found herself going head-to-head with the ever-confident Scott Jennings. The discussion quickly became one of those moments that grabs your attention, because it was not the usual left versus right showdown everyone expected. With Caroline Sunshine, Scott Jennings, and Ana Navarro all sharing the stage, the conversation delivered plenty of tension, sharp exchanges, and unexpected moments. It was one of those panels that kept getting more interesting as it went on, and I definitely had a few thoughts while watching it unfold myself. So let's jump right into it and break everything down together.
In the MOU, it doesn't even address any concrete things about the nuclear program, Iran's support for terror in the region. So were they just hoodwinked?
Well, I think we know now why J.D. Vance was sent out to go sell the MOU. And at the time, Marco Rubio was nowhere to be found. Like, if you remember, J.D. Vance was doing interview after interview after interview, going out and selling this deal. And Marco Rubio was like, what, DJing a wedding still or something? Like, he was nowhere to be found because, as we've now seen, Vance, I think, was set up to be, the fall guy for this. I think we can all agree that if Iran were to assassinate President Trump, that would be wrong, because it is wrong to assassinate leaders of sovereign nations, which is why we should have never assassinated the Ayatollah and replaced him with a younger version. But I don't think Iran wants to assassinate President Trump, because if they were to do that, that would create a rally around the flag effect for this war in the United States that we have not seen yet, and would almost 100% guarantee that the United States has no choice but to launch a full-on ground invasion of Iran, which is the one thing Iran does not want. They have figured out what we have not figured out, which is that this is an economic war. Okay, this war does not have a military solution. We've exhausted all the good military options. What Iran has figured out is war is about studying your opponent. And they've studied President Trump very well. And I think it was just last week, President Trump said, my biggest fear is being Herbert Hoover. I do not want to be the guy who crashes the U.S. stock market. And Iran has studied that. And what they've learned is the playbook is, it's a really nice stock market you've got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it.
Yeah, he called it a risk of economic catastrophe. And Iran sees that, and they're using the leverage that they have. The Journal had an interesting take on this, which is that the MOU had this part about the Strait of Hormuz that was so poorly written that the U.S. thought that it opened up the Strait of Hormuz. But meanwhile, Iran reads it and they say, oh, actually, we control this strait. We're the ones who are going to decide who comes in and out. And now here we are.
I think it speaks to the flippant nature of the whole situation. I mean, if we're being honest, I think if most Americans are being honest with themselves, this whole crisis, this war was created as a shiny object to distract so many folks from the chaos that was around this administration at the time. And what looked to be was promised a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, is now turned into some sort of endless, unprojectable end. And it speaks to the serious nature of this. It speaks to the grave danger that not only the region, but the world sits upon. And there's really two outcomes. There's either the U.S. is going to give in to Iran, continue to give and give and give and give, or we're going to have to commit ourselves and our troops and our military to some sort of effort that is going to blow us away for extended periods of time. It's going to break a lot of people's mindsets as to what Donald Trump's true intentions are there. That's the ultimatum. There is no way to negotiate. This is a propaganda war. Donald Trump is using propaganda and he's propping up the markets. He's not talking to diplomats. He's not talking to generals on an hourly basis. He's talking to financial experts that are telling him when markets are closing, when markets are opening, and when PR needs to be pushed out to change the narrative.
You seem to know exactly who Donald Trump is talking to. How do you know that?
Well, just as an American watching it play out, it certainly feels as though there's no sort of organized fashion of what's going on.
You said he's not talking to generals, that he's only talking to economic planners. I'm just asking how you know that. It just seems to be a wild assertion. I just wonder what evidence of that there is.
As a tax-paying American, I sit there and I watch this stuff play out within minutes after the markets close. I watch before markets open.
So no evidence. So here's what I think. I think we achieved a great military victory.
This was the moment where I almost wished someone on the panel would turn the tables on Scott Jennings for once, because he has a habit of responding to arguments he dislikes with the exact same challenge every time. Whenever someone makes a claim he disagrees with, he immediately asks whether they were personally in the room or witnessed it happen themselves, as if that is the only way anyone can possibly know or understand what took place. The implication is always that if you were not physically there, then your point somehow carries no weight. The irony, of course, is that Scott regularly speaks with complete confidence about situations and conversations he was not personally involved in either. At some point, it would be interesting to see another panelist throw the same question back at him and ask how he knows what he claims to know if he was not there himself.
The Iranian military is devastated. I disagree with Max. I don't think they're currently on the brink of building a nuclear weapon because they can't be because of the military victory that we have achieved.
I didn't say they were on the brink of building a nuclear
You
weapon.
said we have maybe progress.
I said we have not eradicated their nuclear program. Like Trump said, they have 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium. They still have it.
Yeah, and it's buried beneath a significant amount of rubble.
And then they can take it out of there when they want to.
Thanks to the United States military. So that's number one. Number two.
Don't mischaracterize what I said.
After the military victory, they gave diplomacy a chance. And as the president said repeatedly, he always said, I would like to have a deal. I'm prepared for them to not behave, in which case they get nothing, and we have to go back to a military option, which is where we are today. Where it ends, I don't know. There hasn't been as much volatility in the oil market the last couple of days as some people might have projected, which is a good thing. But I do think it's true that they are not interested in rational outcomes here. And this whole threat to assassinate our president, just say one other thing, for all the people out there who've been crapping on our relationship with Israel and what we do with Israel and our alliance with Israel, they gave us intelligence to help us keep our president from being assassinated.
I think we need to focus on our intelligence, though, because our intelligence, if we listen to our intelligence, maybe we should start listening to our own intelligence, because not listening to our own intelligence agencies is how we got into this war. Our intelligence agencies assessed that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. That assessment has not changed throughout this war.
Israel also gave us intelligence telling us that the Iranian regime was about to fall, and that proved to be terribly false. I also think that there is a bigger foreign policy mess here. If you'll remember, January 3rd, extricated Maduro out of Venezuela for what was supposed to be interim elections shortly afterwards. Venezuela has now been hit by 2 devastating earthquakes, and the Maduro vice president and his entire regime is still in place. They're completely incapable and inept to responding to these earthquakes. We saw this week U.S. officials, Southcom officials, greeting and hugging and meeting with the worst of the offenders, the executor of the oppression in Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello. And he couldn't, you see, so we couldn't be in Iran when 50,000 Iranians were getting slaughtered in the streets because a fourth or a third of the U.S. Navy was off the coast of Venezuela. And that now is a hot mess. The woman who gave him the peace prize, she's not even allowed back in her country. And there is nothing this administration is doing to do that. Iran is a quagmire. It feels like every other day they tell us that this is about to end, and it doesn't end. And Cuba, you got 10 million people without electricity, a grid that has completely collapsed, and a bunch of Cuban Americans in Miami wondering when the hell it's going to be their turn.
So to your point about whether this will be a quagmire.
Before getting to the sparks that eventually flew between Caroline Sunshine and Scott Jennings, I wanted to mention something from earlier in the discussion, because surprisingly enough, I actually agreed with Caroline Sunshine on this particular issue, and that is not something I find myself saying very often. Her argument was that recent decisions by Donald Trump had ended up strengthening Iran's position rather than weakening it, and she believed the country had emerged with more influence in the region than it held only months earlier. In her view, the choices made by the White House helped create conditions that shifted the balance of power and produced consequences that were very different from what supporters of the policy had promised. Whether people agree with that assessment or not, it was certainly one of the more unexpected positions to hear coming from someone associated with the MAGA movement, which made the debate even more fascinating to watch.
Our viewers has a question. Where does the panel think that the U.S. will be a year from now in Iran? I mean, Max, you suggested that it's like an on-again, off-again conflict. But where does that end? Are we going to do that forever?
Well, to coin a term, Abby, it looks an awful lot like a forever war. You know, one of those forever wars that Trump was promising to end, and he just started one, and he doesn't know how to get out of it because he thought that the Iranian regime would fall within a few days, which no serious intelligence analyst, which the U.S. intelligence community, nobody really believed that. But Trump seemed to think that because Netanyahu told him that. Clearly, that's not the case. He doesn't have an exit strategy, and so we're basically stuck with this hostile regime, which is as big of a threat as ever to the rest of the region.
But if Republicans lose the House and or the Senate, can that change? Can a Democratic House and or Senate put some guardrails on Trump?
I doubt it because, you know, he has huge authority as commander in chief. He doesn't listen to Congress. I'm not sure that there's much like the only authority he recognizes, as we were discussing earlier, is the market. So he doesn't want to do something that tanks the market.
Guardrails for what? To go back to a world where we're all rainbows and unicorns with the Iranians? They've been at war with us for 47 years.
Rainbows and unicorns.
47 years? Okay.
Nobody has been rainbows and unicorns with the Iranians.
Why didn't I learn about the 40? I'm sorry. The first time I've ever heard about the 47-year Iran war was like this year. Like, we don't teach about the 47-year war with Iran in school. Like, it's insulting to actual conflicts
it's insulting
that
to
we've been
intelligence
involved
that
in.
you have no idea what the Iranians have done
war with
to
Iran.
us for 47
How many Americans
years.
have they killed on U.S. soil in 47 years in the war that we
They have killed thousands of Americans. They have maimed American soldiers. They have attacked American allies, and they have been at war with the West ever since this regime came to power. And it is their intention to build a nuclear weapon and use it on us and use it on Israel and use it on the West. That is their intention, and they state it every day.
No, they intend to just keep using the Strait of Hormuz. They have now learned that they can behave like a nuclear power without ever needing to be one. But okay, so like if we're going to keep going with this, what number of American troops are we willing to commit to keep going? And like how many U.S. troops are you willing to expend to achieve your objectives? And what amount of money? Because like we're not having that conversation, and we need to, because we've already spent $300 billion. We've already lost. Like,
what
those
amount
are
of
the
money am I willing
questions
to
we need to
expend
answer
to keep
those
the
are the
American people
guardrails
safe from the worst regime in the world? A fair amount.
Okay, Iran. Nobody is like. First of all, Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. They don't want a nuclear weapon, and nobody is firing. Nobody is firing a nuke at a country that has 5,000 of them. Do you understand? Nobody is firing a nuclear weapon,
as Max knows,
at a country that has 5,000 of them.
You're arguing that they're some sort of a rational actor here. They're irrational people. It's pretty apparent.
This exchange on Abby Phillips' show may have been one of the clearest examples I have seen of why critics accuse Scott Jennings of acting more like a political defender than an independent analyst. Throughout the discussion, several members of the panel, including Caroline Sunshine, who holds views I disagree with on many other issues, raised concerns about the conflict involving Iran and questioned whether the strategy had been successful. Scott Jennings, meanwhile, remained firmly focused on defending Donald Trump and presenting the situation as a victory for both Trump and the United States. One moment that really stood out was Caroline Sunshine challenging the repeated use of the 47 years talking point, a phrase that seems to appear constantly whenever pro-Trump commentators discuss Iran. Hearing it repeated so often, justified under those circumstances. She also pushed back against dismissing the financial costs associated with foreign conflicts and questioned whether Americans should simply ignore the enormous sums spent on wars over the past several decades. What made the exchange especially interesting was that it took someone from within the MAGA movement itself to challenge some of those familiar talking points directly on air. Whether viewers agreed with her or not, it was certainly unusual to see Scott Jennings facing that kind of resistance from someone who would normally be expected to be on his side. So I want to hear what you think. Was Caroline Sunshine right in this particular debate? Or do you think Scott Jennings had the stronger argument? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the discussion, do not forget to like the video and subscribe for more conversations like this.